Welcome to the Morning Report, a production of FightBackMedia.com, the number one source of urban conservative information in America.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. Listen, I'm starting to see again a lot of conversation or a lot of answers or talk about Project 2025. And I wanted to, I think it's always important to make sure that people get an understanding of what things really are, as opposed to things to sort of grow their own life. It's like the rumor weed just keeps growing and it becomes a factoid. And a factoid is something that somebody says that may be not really true, but everybody says it, and so it gains a modicum of truth to it, like the tie goes to the runner, that kind of thing. And you wonder what I'm talking about. We learned that when I was, in elementary school, playing softball or playing kickball. It's not true. The ball gets there at the same time the runner's out. But people kept saying it, so we thought it was true. We thought it was true in baseball or softball or kickball or whatever we were playing, that if there was a tie, the ball and the player got there at the same time, then tie goes to the runner. It doesn't. And that's what happens when people just say things over and over again. It is, just because everybody's saying it doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean it's true. And I think that the same is true when we start talking about policies, when we start talking about tariffs, and we start talking about Project 2025, which we're going to talk about here today. When I see that a lot of people on the left, on TikTok and on other social medias, are talking about how Trump's 2025 plan is set to send Black people back to the fields and all that kind of nonsense. I said, you know what? Instead of trying to debate you on point to point, because it's interesting, because if you ask them, well, show me where in the 2025 plan it says that they're going to send Black people back on the field. Show me. Well, it's not my job to educate you. Have you heard that before? Not my job. You have Google. You can find out yourself. But you said it's true, so you should be able to back that up. If you can't back that up, shut up. Anyway, that's just me. So I think it's better to actually, let's just go back and talk about what that is. Project 2025 is an initiative from the Heritage Foundation. What I'm guessing at the beginning of the Trump era was not a big supporter of Donald Trump, as I remember. Anyway, and it's from a book that came out, golly, almost 20 years ago. So Project 2025 is an initiative by the Heritage Foundation, is designed for a roadmap for the next conservative administration to reshape the government. So if it hadn't been Trump, it would be somebody else. If it hadn't been Trump, it would have been Ron DeSantis. If it hadn't been Ron DeSantis, it might have been Marco Rubio. If it hadn't been Marco Rubio, it might have been me. Okay, it was never going to be me. But that's what that is. It wasn't Trump's plan. Now, it's a bunch of guidelines for the next person. And we're starting to see some of those things happen. Supporters argue that it aims to correct the expansion of government under liberal administrations and restore the executive accountability. Now, the people who are against it will tell you that it's attempting to centralize power and politicize the civil service and undermine democratic institutions. None of that's true. What I don't understand is why, and I'm going to mention five things. YouTube likes it when you go 5 things that it actually addresses. And this is, and I'm not talking about Trump's plan. I'm not. I'm talking about Project 2025 from the Heritage Foundation, not from the Trump administration. All right, here's the first thing. The plan seeks to ensure that agency leadership with the aligns with the elected president's policies rather than some entrenched bureaucracy. I'm going to talk about that too in a little bit. So I want you to take notes and hang in there, right? Don't fast forward, don't bail out. Hang on. because it's important that people get this. Also, it advocates argue that unelected officials should not have the power to override the administration's agenda. All right, so a president gets elected, a Barack Obama gets elected and wants to institute national health care. Well, let's say the HHS says, no, the leaders of the HHS and people who are unelected bureaucrats make it really super hard for that agenda to go forward. Actually, if that would have happened, the left would have lost their mind. But Obama didn't have to worry about that because what he spent some time doing was making sure that the people who led those entities, those agencies, were on board with the presidential agenda. And they hired people and put people in positions in those agencies that were down with the agenda. And if you weren't down with the agenda, you probably didn't get to stay long, or you just didn't stay long. Now, if you do that, think about this, Barack. I mean, and I wish it had started with just Barack Obama, but we're just going to start there because hell, we got to start somewhere. That was 2008. We are what, 13 years down the road now? We're a decade down the road. It was kind of stopped, but not really, by the first Trump administration. Why did Trump have such a hard time inside? I mean, forget the forces from the outside, but the forces inside government. Why did the chief executive have such a hard time? Because there were a lot of these entrenched civil servants that were put in their positions because of their ideology, not necessarily because of their competence, but of course because of their ideologies, which suited Barack Obama just fine, and ended up suiting Joe Biden just fine. They suited the left just fine, which is why you didn't hear people screaming and yelling, even when Barack Obama said, "Hey, we got to make government more efficient. We got to get rid of the waste, the fraud, the abuse. And I'm going to put our friend Joe Biden in charge because nobody messes with Joe." You didn't see any people grasping their pearls and going, "Oh my God, he's going to dismantle our historic institution." You didn't hear any of that. You didn't hear a bit of it because a lot of it didn't happen. Why? Because from the inside of government, a lot of them were down with the plan. The Heritage Foundation said, "Hey, listen, I don't know if we're ever going to have a conservative president again. I don't know, maybe. But when we do, and if we do, this is what they ought to do." That's Project 2025 in a nutshell. They should find these agency heads that align with the agenda of that administration. How else do you plan to get it done? If you have all these internal fights, if you have the inside of government, the unelected bureaucrats, and they're untouchable somehow, how do you get it going? Now, so the idea is to reduce the bureaucratic influence. Project 2025 proposes reforms to reduce the number of career civil servants who remain in place across different administrations, potentially obstructing policy changes, which is exactly what we saw in 2020. Exactly what we saw. And we're seeing to a degree now, right? Proponents, like myself, argue that this will prevent bureaucratic inertia, which allows for a more responsive governance. Why does it take so long to get things done? Because you have so many people who are unelected bureaucrats that I'm going to call the fourth branch of government. Other people are call them the swamp, because Trump's a colorful dude. He had to come up with a nickname. But they're really the fourth branch of government. We'll get there. I don't want to get ahead. I'm like my pastor. I'm always getting ahead of myself. Anyway, and the idea when you do this, you get to stream. This is the third thing. You get to streamline government agencies. The initiative supports reducing redundancy. Why would you not reduce redundancy in federal agencies and eliminating unnecessary regulations that burden businesses and taxpayers? We believe that this will also improve efficiency and lower operating costs. Makes it better, faster, and cheaper. Makes government better, faster, more responsive, and less expensive. I can't see why one would fight against that. That's kind of weird to me. The fourth thing, YouTube likes it when you count. Prioritization of conservative policies. And why is that important? It's important because it's the Heritage Foundation. Again, this is not one more time. It's not a Trump thing. This is a heritage thing, just like it could be a Cato Institute thing. It could be a Hoover Institute thing. It could be a thing from the Woodrow Wilson Foundation. It just happens to be from the Heritage Foundation. That's what it's from. Anyway, so there's a prioritization of conservative policies. Project 2025 outlines strategies to ensure that conservative values and policies guide governance, including judicial appointments and regulatory rollbacks. Also, advocates agree, like myself, that this is a corrective measure against the progressive shifts in federal policy. And what Heritage is arguing is that the pendulum has swung so far to the left, and I'm doing this backward for your benefit, that some of these things that they talk about in this Project 2025 have to be moved back, at least to the middle. At least. Number 5, reforming civil service, because I think that's very, very important. We have this idea that if you are in civil service, you are nonpartisan, and you're there just to serve the people of the nation, when actually civil servants serve at the what? Say it with me. If you've seen the show Scandal, serve at the pleasure of the president. Right. So the proposal includes measures to make it easier to remove federal employees who resist presidential directives. Now, how could how could Barack Obama possibly have pushed through Congress the Affordable Care Act if indeed he was fighting agencies inside the federal government, which he was not? So you're going to say, because it was a great idea, and it's good for America, so people would want. Imagine if at the time there was a bunch of hardcore conservatives that had been put in positions in civil service that made it tough for him, that just didn't go along. If they were in the IRS, if they were in the Health and Human Services, if they were in the Justice Department, if they were in the FBI, I mean, wherever, and the EPA, the Department of Energy, Department of Education, you just name it, that could have made it very, very difficult, and maybe even impossible. But he didn't have that. So President Obama's agenda was able to go through, and if there was resistance at the congressional level, then that could be overcome, and we saw that it was, especially early on when Republicans didn't have the numbers to stop them. We made a lot of noise. We made a hell of a lot of noise. We made people sign oaths that they would vote to repeal. We had rally fees, and a friend of mine who was running for Congress had processions, kind of funeral processions, and his supporters came out and it was car after car. They even had a my friend Tim will have to refresh my memory. They even had a hearse leading the press processions through Pinellas County, and we made a lot of noise. And we couldn't do anything. We couldn't basically do a damn thing about it. And I said this early when I just had the audio show on Blog Talk Radio. Nothing. We're making all these noise, and I spoke at a couple of rallies myself, but there's nothing we can do really. Everybody, all Republicans in Congress could say no, and they did. And we have the Affordable Care Act, 2010. You remember? Anyway, so those 5 things: executive accountability, reduction in bureaucratic influence, streamlining government agencies, prioritizing conservative policies, and reforming civil service. Those are 5 things that Project 2025 wants to address. Now, nothing amongst them says that they're sending Black people back to the fields. Again, when you hear that from somebody, again, I've tried, so I've not been successful. Maybe you'll be successful. Make them tell you where that is. Now, Project 2025 is a pretty big document. You can go to the Heritage Foundation. You can go and you can download it. You can look up Project 2025. You can download it and you can look through it yourself. You do a Nexus or try to on yourself, but you're not going to find that because it's not there. Everything that you hear about Project 2025, if it hasn't come from the document itself, it's just somebody's interpretation. And of course, there are people who are going to disagree with anything conservatives say. So their interpretation is that everything that a conservative group like Heritage would say would be xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, and racist. Islamophobic, homophobic, xenophobic, and racist. Anything that comes out of a conservative think tank. And this is how they do it. So they're worried about the centralization of power in the executive branch. Here you go. Here's why that's ridiculous. Let's take the Department of Education, for example. The getting rid of the Department of Education, that doesn't consolidate power. What that does is take those things that we talked about and streamlining government, and it lets different areas that are more responsible, hopefully, prayerfully, handle those situations. For instance, you hear about, well, you must not care if you're for getting rid of the Department of Education, you must not care about poor kids and if they eat. Well, you've already heard and you already know that the Department of Education doesn't handle the school lunch program. That's handled through where? The Department of Agriculture. You already know that. So what about Pell Grants and FAFSA school loans? And going to college? Well, you know what? It seems like the people who would best handle that would be the people who handle money, because that's money, huh? How about Department of Treasury? That seems like a better place and a more efficient place to put that. Because when you don't pay and you default, it's the IRS, as part of the Department of Treasury, that's going to have to deal with you, right? Seems that would be more efficient. That would be point to point. It wouldn't be organization. It wouldn't be, doing all that education, and then it would seem like people who gave you the loan, Department of Treasury, the people who make sure you pay it back, Department of Treasury. Anyway, that would seem to make sense, and not seem like it was some consolidation of power in the White House. Not at all. They fear that, of course, this could diminish the role of Congress and the judiciary in policy oversight. No. And for the very same reason I already told you, because all these organizations, Department of Education, EPA, Department of Energy, all have their internal workings that set policy that Congress never votes on. They hardly ever look into it unless there's a lawsuit. So idea or this ideal that these agencies need to be nonpartisan and non-political, so they won't be affected one way or the other. It's sort of an ideal that doesn't exist. It just doesn't. It doesn't exist, and it's because of the people who have been put in charge of these agencies, who hire people and direct whatever the narrative is from the administration, because they get appointed by the administrations, from Clinton to Obama to Biden, from Bush's. I don't want to go back that far, not just George W., but his dad, Reagan. Because some of these people have been in these organizations since George Bush. People who spend 30 or 40 years inside the Department of Energy, the CIA, the FBI, is problematical. Because frankly, what happens is that an agency loyalty is built up because they really don't have any oversight unless they really screw the pooch. That's what we don't get. They really don't have any oversight from Congress unless they screw the pooch. Unless somebody just does something stupid and outrageous and it gets found out. Otherwise, they go to Congress every year and for their appropriation, thank you for the money. They go back to their hovel, to their bat cave, do whatever the hell they want, put together any regulations that they want with penalties that they want, telling people they can collect rainwater or they can't collect rainwater. That means that I can't put out a bucket and collect the water from the sky and use it for my own purposes. Seems crazy. See, that's one of the things that I miss that, because that's the thing that seems like the craziest. That I can't put a bucket out in my yard and collect rainwater, water that falls from the sky. It's free. It's free. That doesn't go through any system or whatever. And I can't use that for my own purposes. There are places in the country that you can't do that. Seems crazy. It's water. It's water that would have gone into the ground, or it's water that would have fell on my head, or gone into a lake, or it'd be watering my grass. It's water that fell on my yard, on my property. I got it in a big barrel. I think I'm going to use it to water my flowers. I think I'm going to use it to bathe in. I think I'm going to use it for something else. It's water. Well, it could have something in it. It could. And that's on me, isn't it? If I drink it and it poisons me and I die, it's sad, but it's on me. But to make it illegal or have a regulation that I can't do that, and have that regulation come from some bureaucrat somewhere. I mean, if there needs to be a dirty word in government, it needs to be bureaucrat. It needs to be the phrase unelected bureaucrat. When I hear about, I'm going to take for a second, when I hear people say, well, Elon Musk, nobody elected him, unelected bureaucrats. I mean, but in all these agencies that are now protesting Elon Musk, all these people who are attacking Tesla dealerships and Tesla owners, and all these morons who are, I'm selling my Tesla. Yeah, you already bought it, moron. He's already got the money. You can sell it if you can. Not going to get anything for it, but Elon's got the money for it already. That deal was already done, right? Elon Musk is, yes, unelected, hardly a bureaucrat though, asked to lead this particular organization, Doge, that is going to time out. Doge is not like the Department of Education. Doge is not like the EPA. Doge is not like any of these other agencies. It is not. It's not. It is going to time out. It's going to time out in. I'm trying to find out real quick. It's going to time out. Let's see here. I can't spell. DOGE. I still can't spell. Doge tracker. There we go. It's going to time out in how many days? In 260 days. No, I'm sorry. In 460 days. It's going to time out in 460 days. Like I told you, I'm worried about, and so is the Heritage Foundation, about the fourth branch, a fourth branch of government. And here's where it comes from. It's, the left is pushing it as a threat to independent agencies. Many agencies operate with a degree of independence to avoid political interference, such as the Federal Reserve, which is not a government agency, by the way, it's a private bank. You can look that up. The Federal Reserve is not a government agency, it's a private bank. But and the FDA and the Department of Education, or the Department of Energy, the EPA, and on and on and on. So the idea is they operate independently or have a degree of independence. It'd be like your kid saying, yeah, I'll come for my allowance, but I'm not going to do anything you tell me to do. As a matter of fact, even worse, I'll make it more difficult for you to do anything that you want to do, because I'm independent. But you're not independent. If you were an independent agency, you'd be making your own money. You wouldn't be going to the taxpayer that the president is accountable to, asking for money and then saying, no, we're doing our own job over here. Leave us alone. Leave us alone, Mr. President. Leave us alone, Congress. Mr. President, leave us alone. We're doing our job here for the American people. No. They can't be that independent, because that would make them the fourth branch of government. And they will be able to do whatever they wanted to do, because we want to make sure that they weren't interfered, or led by politics. Politics put them there. Politics created the Department of Education. Politics created the Department of Energy. Politics created most of the agencies that are federal agencies. How many can you find that was created in the Constitution? I know how many you can find of them that were created in the Constitution. Well, none of them. The same number of international organizations that we're supposed to be involved in, none. As a matter of fact, we're not supposed to be involved in any international organizations. Zero. It's not okay to be in the UN. It's not okay to be in NATO. It's unconstitutional for us to be a part of these international organizations. But anyway, I'm going to get my friend KrisAnne Hall on the show to talk about that one thing, just that one thing, because people don't understand any of that, unfortunately. But anyway, so they're afraid of this fourth point, the potential for authoritarian governance. All their objections are some fear that something might happen. The problem is, the thing that they're fearing that might happen has already happened. It's already happened. And it's happened under leftist leadership. It's already happened. It's already been happening. This idea that these organizations would be politically motivated. It's already happened. They've just had the advantage. I mean, the left has had the advantage with all these appointments and all these hirees in these positions since Bill Clinton. And now somebody is saying maybe you should lose that. The Heritage Foundation is saying maybe we should lose that advantage. So they're on full freaking alert because it's the dismantling of the fourth branch of government. You know, Trump has called it the deep state, but it is an agency-based government, a bureaucracy-based government, a bureaucratic-based government, the shadow government that Tim Walz was talking about. Sometimes they say the quiet part out loud. He's fun. He's so fun. Anyway, and they worry about the impact on democratic institutions. What? Anyway, detractors argue that the implementation of these policies could shift the balance of power away from democratic processes and towards executive authority. Almost. They worry that the longstanding bipartisan norms could be eroded in favor of ideological governance. It's already happening, and it has been happening. So this ideal that these people work in these departments are non-political and non-partisan, what we all know is that that's not true. And it hasn't been true in a long time. And so now we're just going to pretend that it's true. And Trump is trying to upset all of that so he can be king, and we might not even have elections next time. And oh my God. I know these people on TikTok just losing their freaking mind. Over what? So when they mentioned when they mentioned Project 2020, directing towards this video, they won't want to do it. But at least I'll get a view. And let them know that that's not what 2025 is. It's not Trump's plan. The Heritage Foundation's plan. It's smart if Trump follows a lot of it, and he seems to be, in making sure at least his cabinet are people who are down with the agenda, down with the plan. How can you take something over if you're not and be a part of it? Be the president's secretary of state or the president's serve in the cabinet, be his secretary of defense or his attorney general. That's one of the questions. That was one of the questions that Pam Bondi had. Can you be independent of Donald Trump? I won't let Donald Trump break the law. Well, it's an offer. But the agenda that he wants to carry out that doesn't break the law, of course his attorney general is going to be down with it. Of course. Just like all the other attorney generals throughout history. They're not gonna, you're not gonna convince Pam Bondi to be part of the resistance. Of course not. That's first of all, that's dumb as hell. Not gonna happen. I told you why they were afraid of her. Because she's competent. She's better than competent. She's awesome. And what they know is that she was going to be able to help the president move his agenda forward. Because that's what she was signing up for. In any case, Project 2025 is and I'll put the link in the description box below, or I'll put it on the TikTok videos if we can make shorts out of them. I don't know if it's going to happen. Sometimes Decipher makes great video shorts, and sometimes Decipher doesn't make any, great or otherwise. I don't know. We'll see. In case we got to get out of here, maybe for somebody else. So until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye bye now.